Hello everyone, welcome to this webinar titled Making Maps in Petrosys using ESRI data. This is the second part of a series of webinars. The first part was presented by my colleague Iwan a couple of weeks ago. So this will be the agenda that we will cover today. We'll see briefly the supports ESRI formats, the additional GIS functionality not covered in the first webinar. Then we will follow with a demonstration of this functionality, and we'll wrap it up with a summary. And if you guys have any questions, we'll answer them at the end of the webinar. So very quickly, as I said, this was already explained in the first webinar. These are the most common formats in ESRI datasets that are supported in Petrosys. All of these for future classes. Regarding rasters, we support all of these file formats, and we also support MXD and LIR files in Petrosys. If you are working with RSD and ArcGIS Desktop 10.5, the version of Petrosys that supports this version of ArcMap is 17.8.4, so I recommend you to upgrade and get the benefits in our latest release. So in our first webinar, we covered how to display and edit a wide variety of ESRI files. Today we will check additional GIS functionality. We will see how to edit attributes for future classes very quickly. We will focus in operations like the back interpolation from grids into feature classes. The back interpolation is a process where you pretty much sample a grid at well locations or point files, and that's what we'll show in the demonstration. I'll also show another popular operation deemed to create buffer around shapes, and then we can push them back into ESRI datasets. I'll show you how to grid point data using ESRI data. It could be shapefiles, geodatabases, and SDE. I'll show you as well how to exchange data between ESRI and other systems, and we'll wrap it up with a small looping workflow where I'll show you how to load data in bulk into ESRI feature classes using a looping workflow in Petrosys, which is a quite popular functionality within Petrosys. And I'll show you as well how to display a raster via ArcGIS server. So we are ready to start our demonstration. Let's go to a mapping window that I had previously prepared. In the background I have a raster imagery that is served via our ArcGIS server. I'll turn it off now to keep working with my additional data set. We have a thematically mapped layer, which it represents the different type of leases that we have in the offshore of Western Australia. We are going to focus in a particular lease that it's located here. So let's say that, for example, if I want to query the attributes of this list, the easy way to do is selecting the list, right clicking, and then we select query attributes. We select the attributes that we want to query. In this case I have already selected title, ID, type, status, and if we click OK, it's telling us the different attributes that I had previously selected. So let's focus on the second layer that I have on my map, which is a file geodatabase with a feature class called petroleum wells. And in order to display the symbology, I have enabled this option that is called select symbol via attribute value. So I select my attribute that contains my symbol information, and that's a way to directly display the symbology, the right symbology for the wells that I have in this particular layer. So the first operation that I want to show you is how to back interpolate. So the first thing that we need to do in order to do this operation is to launch the Spatial Editor, and the easiest way to do is selecting the layer that we want to edit, right click and select edit. As soon as we do that, the feature class called petroleum wells and enters now in edit mode. So if I want to do the back interpolation, this is the way to do it. If we go to operations, we select back interpolate, and what we are doing here is sampling this grid, which contains porosity, a porosity grid, and we will sample it at those point locations in this feature class. I have already selected, created an attribute called porosity, and as soon as I click apply, it will populate the porosity values. It will sample the grid and into those locations. So it's telling me that this number of values were updated. If we now close this one, and if we select any well, and I will expand this a little bit, we see now that there is an additional attribute called porosity, and the values of the porosity that were extracted from the grid are now populated into my feature class. So the second operation that I want to show is how to create buffer around shapes. So we go back into our operation menu in the Spatial Editor and select buffer shapes. In this case, let's say that I want to create buffers of 500 meters to simulate drainage radius for these wells. I input the distance, which is 500 meters. I select the output details, which is the file geodatabase that I'm working with. I'm going to select the mode as replace because there is already a feature class called polygon drainage 500 meters, so I'm going to replace the feature class. I set all the relevant parameters, the shape type, which will be a polygon, and then click apply. It's telling me that I will replace this feature class, and as soon as I click apply, we get the drainage, the polygons represent the buffer shapes of 500 meters around my wells. If I close this one here, I'm going to close this one here. We already saved this one, and also close this one. And what I will do, I will duplicate the feature class for the wells and select the duplicate one. I go into the different feature class and I will select the one that I just created. It's telling me that the symbol attributes will be lost. I forgot to set my shape, which is, let's say that is a solid one and a color of, let's say, blue. And you see now we have a buffer shapes below each one of the symbols. If I adjust the size of the symbology to make it look a bit better, it looks like a bit better. So we have on top the wells with the symbology, and below that we have a polygon representing a drainage radius of 500 meters. So that's another feature that we may find useful when using the Spatial Editor and when using ESRI data. Let's say that I now want to grid some data. I want to grid some permeability values stored in a standalone shapefile. So the way to do that, we go to our surface modeling tool and we go to grid, create grid. So we have to make sure that we select the right input dataset. In this case, it's a shapefile that's called permeability, and have selected the right attribute, which is the one that has the permeability values stored. I'm going to clip the output grid, and I will use the boundaries of the petroleum list to do that, and I will apply some smoothing as well. So if I click OK, it's telling that it will overwrite that particular grid. So it's creating the grid. It's taking a bit of time because the cell size is quite small, 25 meters, and now it's clipping the grid against the polygon from the title list shapefile. It has finished. So if we go now, we have the permeability grid that I just created, and that's my permeability grid, and on top I have the porosity grid that I use to back interpolate. Now that we have done some operations from the Spatial Editor using ESRI data, I'll show you how to exchange data from, let's say, for example, I want to consolidate my data into my file geodatabase. So what I will do is I will push back the permeability values from the shapefile into the file geodatabase. So the way to do that, we go to the main launcher, exchange spatial data translator, which is the tool that allows you to exchange all different type of spatial data across different interpretation packages. So I will select my shapefile, which is the permeability one, and I will push it into my file geodatabase, which is here, and I will navigate through my folders to select it, and I will use the update selecting feature class because there is already a permeability feature class for this one. And I will select append. As soon as I click apply, so what I have done is to push back or exchange the permeability from the shapefile into the file geodatabase as a new feature class. So if we check into the list of feature classes, there is now a permeability feature class, which is the one that I just saved into the file geodatabase. The last thing that I wanted to show you today is how to load data in bulk. So if we go again to our surface modeling, I had previously prepared a task showing this. So what I've done is to set a task to exchange spatial data similar to the one that I just showed you, but in this case the inputs are seismic surveys stored in spreadsheets, in Excel spreadsheet, and I want to save them into my file geodatabase. So I set all the relevant parameters. In this case the file geodatabase is called seismic surveys 2D. I will update the existing feature class because there are already some seismic surveys there, so I will just want to add additional surveys, so that's why the mode is appending, is to append. I then set a looping task, which in this case I'm looping across different files. So I select all the files that I want to import. In this case I'm selecting 3 spreadsheets, each one containing a different seismic survey, and what is remaining to do is to edit the parameters that needed to be scripted. So I go to task parameters, and I have already scripted the input Excel file name. So instead of reading a single value, is pointing to the looping task. So what it's actually saying is that every time that it goes here, it will take a different file from the looping task, and there is no need to set an output script because as I'm just appending, it will add a new survey into my feature class. So if I go here and I run it, what it's doing is looping over all those files. So every time it's saving a new seismic survey into the file database, and when it finishes, go for the next one, and it has completed now the input of the three of them. And that's a quick way to import data, to load data in bulk using Petrosys. So let's go back to our presentation to wrap it up. So tools like the Spatial Editor in Petrosys offer a wide range of operations that allows you to create and modify ESRI data. We use the back interpolation tool and to create buffer shapes. Exchange tools like the Spatial Data Translator are ideal to transfer ESRI data to and from interpretation systems. So you can, as I show you, translate data from shapefiles into ESRI dataset or into other interpretation packages. And surface modeling allows you to directly grid ESRI data. I use this occasion a shapefile, but it could have been on any file geodatabase or any feature class within a geodatabase. And the last thing that I showed you was how to use a looping workflow in order to load data in bulk into ESRI dataset. That's a very good functionality in the surface modeling tool. And that's pretty much all that I wanted to show you today. Let's see if there are any questions